Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're going to be taking a look at a 5 versus 5 that was played on a very cheeky little map. A map that goes by the name of Downs of Destruction version 2. It's an interesting little one and not one that we usually see played like this. Usually we see this map played in a different orientation, basically flipped on its side and played as a 1v1 map. I'm forgetting the name of it, but basically it has a big pond in the center and then two islands. It's almost like the inverted version of this map. But today we're going to be watching a cute little 5v5. And so, today spotting as the Blue Legion Commander, representing the blue team, it's MGGW, clocking in at 18 open skill. Well, okay, so... already off to a weird start because the actual blue team leader is Bite My Assets, clocking in at 29 open skill, but not playing as the blue team commander. I really don't know what's going on with that. I don't know what causes that issue. But anyways, Bite My Assets here, going to be the 29 open skill blue team leader in Cyan, not regular blue, also playing as a Legion Commander. All the way on the other side of the map, it looks like spawning as the red team commander. It's going to be Plantasnik, the red commander here, all dressed up for Christmas. Big old bag of toys and a little Christmas hat as well. But it's actually going to be the yellow commander in the water right here, wearing those reindeer antlers and a bright shiny red nose. The Cortex commander that goes by the name of Kislik 540. Gonna be going for some good old-fashioned Cortex boats. I love it. I approve of it, of course. Cortex boats are basically superior across the board. Don't quite have Legion boats out, but ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, those boats were looking awesome. The last time Hornet gave me a little preview of what those boats were looking like, they were looking chef's kiss. I'm really, really excited for when those boats do come out. They're gonna be a treat. Now this map is pretty interesting, obviously, because it's got this big old water lane, and oftentimes when water and land mix, water tends to win. The boats in Beyond All Reason are very, very powerful, so usually it comes down to whosoever is the commander that manages to put a little bit more pressure on the land using those boats. So it's going to come down to Kislik, and I guess MGGW here is the blue... Oh, okay, so no, not going to be the blue commander going for boats, but instead some of those good old-fashioned Legion hover tanks. Okay. Now we've seen that the Cardia, the shotgun hover tank, has performed exceptionally against boats. For whatever reason, it just is one of those units that can really stand up to them, and it looks like, oh, the construction hovercraft got a little reskin too. Hey, look at that. Oh, that's looking real nice. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's got the two little pontoons on its feet, and then it's got the little energy pack on its backside. I love that the energy pack has become sort of a staple of Legion. It's like their little Cornex battery. Very neat, very cool to see. Now, the interesting thing, of course, is that hovercraft can go between land and sea, so they can go harass the land, but then they can also dive into the sea. There is a Navy player here, though, for the red team. There isn't one for the blue team. This is really, really odd. Now, obviously, as the Navy player, you start off with very little metal, which is why the blue team has opted not to go for that. But yeah, it really does cut you back quite a lot. Swarm Hive Mind, the Seafoam Green Commander, gonna go ahead and go for one of those heavy transports, the Hephaestus. The Cortex heavy transport, going to be picking the commander up in the air, but just for the giggles of it, just hanging that commander out, and it looks like eventually going to move him on over towards the center island. Okay, nice play. Yeah, I think rushing for the center island is well worth it. You can see there's quite a few metal extractors. Wait, what? Oh, no. I thought there was 3 metal extractors here and 2 over there. I would have been like, well, that's an obvious imba. All right, map creator needs to take a little note. No, there's 2 metal extractors on the high ground, and it looks like 1 on the low ground. Obviously, all of these are threatenable by boats. This midsection one right here particularly is going to be really, really tricky to hold as soon as destroyers come out onto the field. We had a little bit of a scuffle over here. It looks like one of those Glaucus or Glacis. Glaucus. Yeah, G-L-A-U. A-U is ow. So, Glaucus. Don't get me wrong. The Legion have awesome names and beautiful models, but sometimes they are a little bit difficult to produce. I can't deny it. A couple of these good old-fashioned Nereus. Sort of a weird tank. They're a rapid-fire plasma tank, so they're almost like a light plasma tank is kind of how I would think of them. They're very speedy and they fire quite a rapid barrage of projectiles. Very good for dealing with tiny units like grunts and whatnot, so it's cool to see them engaging right here. I think it's basically the perfect use case for these bad boys. Bite My Assets, ooh, with a nice D-gun right there, and a set of heat ray blasts as well. Managed to take offline a whole bunch of those units. Oh my goodness, look at a little bit of micro right here. It's a beautiful little bit of micro right here as Bite My Assets goes ahead and goes for the capture command. It is 60 metal and 630 energy that we're saving, but why? not? Why not go ahead and save that metal, save that energy, and go ahead and use it to instead build, oh, I don't know, a metal extractor or some static defense or anything else like that. It's little plays like that that just really make me excited to watch a game of Beyond Horizon. Oh, I love watching the pros play. Buy my asset at 29 open skill. Usually at this point nowadays, back in my day, the pro bar was quite low. I definitely, you know, a couple of months ago, maybe a couple of years ago, really, buy my assets, I would have definitely considered pro level. At this point, 40 is kind of the cutoff that I look for here, so maybe not quite pro level, but definitely as far as the skill level in this game goes, definitely showing us some good stuff. Now, Kislik 540 is going to be moving up onto the land right here, discovering, of course, that Swarm Hivemind has gone ahead and gone for a little bit of an infestation. Now, we need defenses. We need LLTs to threaten back a commander. This is a 620 metal base that I believe is basically forfeit at this point. Yeah, Kislik going to find the metal extractor and suss out exactly what's going on over here. Definitely a tricky situation. Meanwhile, the orange commander Flat E as well as Plantasnik, the red commander, are both contributing forces over here into the, I guess, the island. It's an island. Yeah, it's surrounded by water on all sides. I don't know. Does a land bridge count as surrounded by water? Does shallow water count? I'm not entirely sure. What is it called when a river creates an island? I feel like that's kind of what we're looking at here. It's like a little river path that created an island. I feel like there's a name for that. I'm almost certain there's a name for that. Anywho, the orange commander now pushing forward. Very, very slowly, but very steadily. Yeah, using these maces to threaten back AMA 2017's commander, and using the pawns to guard against any sort of shenanigans, any grunts or goblin or pawn spam, anything like that. Not bad. Here we are. Looks like Kislik has gone for a little bit of a reclaim command because the lab has now changed sides. Swarm Hivemind looks at this and goes, wait a second. I swear I recognize that. Goes ahead and goes for the capture command once more. Sure. It's a capture off. What a bizarre play right there. Two capture commands between these two commanders. Looks like Kislik is going to split build a LLT as well as an anti-air tower here. Moves in a position to defend against it. Swarm Hivemind might just be looking to self-destruct. Yep. The hug of death has been declared. Boom, go the commanders. Two adorable little gingerbread cookies left in the wake of a devastating explosion. Now, nearly 3,000 metal lying in wreckage right here in the midsection of the island. And suddenly, this has become a very, very valuable prospect to try and gather. And indeed, we do have a aircraft headed on over in this direction, looking to reclaim some of that juicy, juicy metal. Buy my assets continuing to move forward right here. We do have a resurrected constructor that's always cool to see. And we have that, oh, that constructor. Beautiful, very sexy. Spewing out its little particle beams to try and build up one of these good old-fashioned Legion metal extractors. We have the geothermal available now at this point as well. Going to be a nice little spike to the energy production for the blue commander, I do believe. Little engagement over here, Blitzes versus Nereus. It's a bit of an interesting fight. I mean, the thing is the Nereus are so light in the armor plating that the Blitz actually can get a lot of value here, but the Nereus do enough damage that I feel like they can effectively counter the Blitz. They have the fire rate that they can miss a lot of shots and it doesn't matter because they can just dish out enough damage. Yeah, I want to say this fight goes fairly well for the Nereus. It's not a 1-to-1 though. You got to remember these Nereus are 220 metal versus the Blitz is 109. So nearly double the metal for basically 1x the effectiveness, right? So I guess the other way of saying that is that they're half as effective. Which I guess means they're not very efficient whatsoever. But a boy can dream, damn it. The aircraft here eating up the rest of whatever it can. Definitely got its value worth, right? Ate up one of those commanders and about half of the other. That's about 1.7 thousand metal or so. Right on back to the Seafoam Green commander. And indeed, looks like it's been dispatched out to the team here. We've got a T2 constructor up and running. And hopefully we've been paying for these. But it does mean the pink commander is going to eventually take on over this midsection. Now, one of the things I'd love to see is this heavy transport picking up units. It's an often forgotten about move, but one that you can do if your enemy is keeping their units still is you just go ahead and pick up all their tanks. If you pick up enemy units and the transport dies while it's holding the units die as well. So it's a very bizarre but cheap way of killing enemy units is just by picking them up with transports. Paralyzing them with shuriken and picking them up with transports. And then when the transports are shot down by enemy fighters, so too are the tanks that went along with it. In fact, let's just do a little cost-benefit analysis. 74 metal and 1,450 energy for a Hercules. Versus a whopping 225 metal and 2,000 energy for a Stout. So it is cost efficient, right? Like that's an efficient trade if you manage to pick up at least one 1 medium tank per Hercules, I would say you've actually gotten your medals worth destroying those units. It's a weird mechanic. It's not one that I would expect normal, average, everyday Joes to take advantage of. But hey, if you've got a replay where you manage to make a play out of it, feel free to send it my way. Best way to do that is through the Discord channel, by the way. I get that question a lot. Over on the Discord is where I accept most of my replays, 99.99% of my replays. There is technically an email, but I shudder to even mention it because I so hardly ever check it. I would definitely say if you're looking to submit a replay or just join in the Brightworks community, you're more than welcome to join us over there, and consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. It helps me out a lot, which I do appreciate sincerely, but also helps Bar grow as well, because we here at the Brightworks represent a large interest in the Beyond All Reason community, so I definitely feel like if you wanted to join, now's a great opportunity to do so. Here's one of those shotgun hunter tanks. Ooh, beautiful. My goodness, you can see how much damage it does. When it gets in close and it actually lands all of its shots, you can see how much damage. Oh my goodness, it's a crazy damage spike. It really goes from doing basically nothing at range to doing a huge amount of damage when it's up close and personal. What a fun unit. All that impulse too. That impulse is really important, actually. It does help this tank a lot. The ability to stun the enemy tanks so that the hover tank can actually get within range, it's really, really beneficial. My goodness, look at it tear through these medium tanks. What a beast. Wow, the Cardea, the shotgun hover tank, 510 metal, or sorry, 550 metal, 11,000 energy. Don't get me wrong, that is a gargantuan sum of energy. That is a huge expense in the energy department to produce one of these tanks. But my goodness, it's hard to argue with the results. I mean, that thing just single-handedly blasted down 5 or 6 or 7 medium tanks. Well, single-handedly, maybe. A little bit of an over-exaggeration. There were some Glaucus helping out as well, but still, I think the shotgun hover tank did the majority of the work right there. What a funky but awesome little unit right there. I hope we get to see more of these in action. I'm sure they're going to be one of those units that we see a whole lot more as Legion becomes a little bit more mainstream, and it already is becoming a little more mainstream. But even so, as it continues to develop further, and as more and more players continue to start to play it, big old battle happening over on the right-hand side. Ama calls the resign mode over on the right-hand side. The left-hand side still holding strong. Star Sanctum, Mr. Mando going for a hovercraft platform and a vehicle plan. Very expensive. Got some Garkpie coming up, those good old-fashioned amphibious tanks, and we've got a amphibious lab producing some Tritons here. Cool. Tritons are the T2 Legion boat tank, and they are quite literally a boat tank. You can see them swimming along on the ocean's surface. Oh, they've gotten a little bit of a texture update too. So these tanks used to have this funny little mechanic where they would, basically their treads would sit above the water and it would just look like they were just driving on top of the water. Now it actually looks quite a bit better. Yeah, with the treads underwater, it actually does look like they're almost being propelled, right? Like they're, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to say it makes sense, but I'm definitely going to say I can see what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to mean. I get it. What a catch right here. Whole bunch of Resbots caught by just a couple of these Glaucus fast attack hovercraft. Wonderful. Yeah, the Blitz is also susceptible to these as they are outranged by them. The thing about Glaucus and many of the weapons that Legion makes use of is that they are heat ray beams. Two things that are important to note about heat ray beams: you cannot adjust your firing angle while you're firing a heat ray. At least in most of the cases. There are a few units that are the exception. Static defenses like the Bastion and the T2 heavy heat ray tank are another exception. But aside from specifically those, the Incinerator, okay, I'll grant you the Incinerator as well. Any of the, in fact, I guess the list of units that can adjust is actually more than the list of units that can't. But anyways, when you're going for Helios or Glaucus, they cannot adjust their little beam whenever they are, whenever they are moving. So you have to keep them still in order to get maximum damage. That's part one. The other part of it is you do have to worry about. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked by this beautiful little engagement over here. But to finish that thought, the other important note is that they have extreme damage fall off. So at range, the heat rays are much, much worse. I believe it's a 50% damage fall off. So it is important. It is definitely worth remembering, worth considering, because it is not nice to lose that much damage potential on your attacks or whatever when you're microing those units. It's just one of those things that's really important to remember, because if you're fighting at half power, you're obviously spending a lot of metal for a unit that you're fighting at half power is not going to be efficient. Probably a long-winded explanation for that. That definitely... I hope that made sense. Sure hope it made sense. The Green Commander AMA 2017 almost entirely knocked out of the game, but still trying. Still holding on strong. We have, where is this energy production coming from? Oh, I guess it's just from the constructors. Yeah, okay. Energy production of about plus 21 here coming out from the constructors. Pumping out energy in order to build this advanced metal extractor slowly but steadily. We do have some T2 units headed over in this direction. Nicely done. Purple Commander paying attention to the woes and weary waves of their team. Always good to see. A bunch of platypus. Yeah. Not a good engagement here for these platties. Try and get a good cinema shot right there. Very nice. I mean, basically as close to a perfect defense as you could ever possibly hope for. The platypus, the T2 amphibious raider bot, shut down right there easily by all these units. And I mean, what a wreckage field. We switch to superior metal vision. Yeah, there we go. Nearly 3,500 metal lying on the floor right there, ripe for the reclamation. Looks like we do have a single Triton making it through, though. Convertible boat tank. It's got a little minigun strapped to its head, a little, basically a light machine gun. Doesn't do much damage, but it is nice for tickling units, and I believe it does a little impulse, too. The main cannon is actually that, well, main cannon that's attached to it that does a little bit more impulse, and at the end of the day, it just is actually what ends up doing a lot more of the damage. I love the aesthetic of these, though. I will say, the aesthetic appeal of these is not lost on me. Firing away their little twin machine guns, or their little single machine guns. Low caliber machine guns. Commander here trying to blast down as many of these Triton as possible. Having a bit of a rough time of it. Yeah, I think this is the right move. Just use those Triton to do as much damage as possible. Just get their values worth out of killing all these tidal generators. You can see there's about 2,000 metal worth of tidal generators here, so not hard to get 700 metal per Triton's worth of value out of it. Drexo in a little bit of trouble. Wow. That was nearly a 14% blast right there from the single main cannon right there from the Triton. My goodness. That is actually a gigantic burst of damage. I thought that was more of an AoE weapon, but it actually just demolished the commander right there. Okay. Good to know. The Triton main cannon is actually a very significant force to be reckoned with. We've graduated from Garpikes. We are now headed towards Salamander. Ooh. Triton's pretty happy to catch the Salamander in the water, though. Shuriken trying their best. One of the issues with Shuriken, of course, is that some units, like, for instance, Raider units like the Salamander, are fairly resistant. What exactly is going on here? There's some particle effects that are happening. And I can't tell you why. Some sort of interaction between the water and the Easter eggs, I think, or the Christmas eggs? Whatever those little egg things are. Flat E just barely makes it alive of this engagement over on the right-hand side. And I do mean just barely. 7% HP left on that orange commander right there. Does start to reclaim the wreckages. This is one of 3 remaining commanders, though, and so the red commander is obviously a little bit worried about the fact that that commander is out there in the open like that. Hovercraft going on a tear in the backline, by the way. You can see the path of destruction they led. Star Sanctum Mr. Mando. I could bring him in cold, or I could bring him in warm. Love the Mandalorian. Mandalorian lore has got to be some of the most interesting in all of Star Wars, personally. I've already gone on my rant about my favorite character development in Star Wars, and that would, of course, be Darth Maul. But I have to give credit to the Mandalorian people for having one of the most interesting background, story, lore, civilizations in all of Star Wars. It wouldn't be fair to say that they don't have an interesting one, right? They're just oftentimes outshadowed by or overshadowed, rather, by the, you know, the other forces at play. Definitely a shame sometimes. Mr. Mando moving into position. It's a killer D-gun. Perfect defense right there from the tank commander. Nicely done. I always love to see a good D-gun in use. Nothing more satisfying than spending 500 energy to cleave apart thousands of metal worth of enemy units, and obviously, the higher tier of the units, the more satisfying it is. Poison Arrow getting a little showcase here as well. I feel like we barely ever get to see those things in action. They are essentially a bull. They're like a bull that fires slower and is amphibious. For all that that's worth to any commander out there, it costs a little bit more and can swim. So, if that trade-off sounds good enough to you, then you might consider building a Poison Arrow, but oftentimes we see commanders preferring Salamander for their cheapness and fair relative ruggedness, right? They're decently survivable, decently priced, and a lot of times that's kind of the unit that you need. You don't need the specific unit that costs the most and does the one specific job. You kind of... Whoa, pardon me. You need the one unit that typically does the job. Does a bunch of jobs. It does a well-rounded circle of jobs, right? You don't need it to do you don't need it to do one job specifically. Oftentimes that's where Armada falls short. A lot of Cortex units tend to rely heavily on being basically capable of doing everything. And I guess I say rely heavily on, but it's also to their strength that they are quite sufficient at doing everything decently well. I think the Mammoth is probably my favorite example. It has a lot of HP, it does a good amount of damage, it doesn't have very good movement speed, so, you know, that's certainly a drawback, but there are certainly instances where you want the precise tool as well. Sharpshooters are the pinnacle example that I can think of. Poison Arrow is also fairly EMP resistant, but only to the extent that 300 Shuriken care to elaborate. Mr. Mando getting very low HP. Uh-oh. Boom goes the tank commander, the last bastion standing in the way. The direct opposition to the push right there on the left-hand side. Suddenly this entire area is open for attack. Amphibious tanks have anti-EMP, except Triton, I guess. Good to know. Suddenly this match has turned into a game of corners. Oh yeah, there we go. More of those Glaucus running by, popping all those wind turbines is shutting down the energy economy right here for the tank commander. Very cool to see. Oh. A little bit of friendly fire right there from those poison arrows. How unfortunate for the poison arrows and the tank commander in general. The red team has abandoned all hope. Yeah. Down to just 2 commanders holding the line at the very end. We are suddenly running very thin on ABM. The backline eco-scaling hasn't been tremendously impressive. We are going for a lot of wind turbines, which is always good to see. At the very least, it's some sort of eco-scaling. But at the end of the day, it usually takes fusion reactors. In this case, it won't, though, as the blue team manages to push forward eventually in a slow warfare of attrition, whittling down the forces here of the red team with some killer run-bys and some brilliant showcases of that good old-fashioned Legion technology. Thanks a ton for watching. Sorry for the coughing, and I hope you had a wonderful rest, or I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the very next cast of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.